Hey friends, it's Gina. Welcome to the TheReBookery channel. Today I'm going to flip through 6 journals that I'm going to be putting in my Etsy shop on Thursday, let's see, October 12th at, let's go 7 p.m. because I did 7 a.m. last time, so we'll do 7 p.m. this time. Thursday, October 12th, Central Standard Time, and I will flip through these journals and show you the kind of goodies and stuff that are going to be inside them. So my inspiration for this collection, which I'm calling the Cookbook Collection, came from my little journal. This is the journal that I am currently working in right now, and I've been working in it for most of the summer, and I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I wanted to make something that was fat, kind of like this, but also had a lot of cookbook overtones to it. Maybe not something that you would use as a recipe album, but maybe you just kind of like the feel and the imagery of vintage recipes, vintage cooking, vintage home, and things like that. So that's kind of my inspiration. And I tried to use some of the same pages and some of the same fabrics that I have in my little journal. One of the things I've used a lot are these little triangles. These are some quilting scraps that I was lucky enough to come across. And so I use these a lot in my little journal, and I've used these a lot in journals, period. So one of the things that I actually have put in my shop, and they're actually in there right now, are these little buntings that I made. And I was thinking, you know, sometimes I go back and I forget to sew on a page, or I didn't sew on the page when I was putting the journal together, but I still want some of that fabric. So what if I took these little buntings and I could staple them on, or I could paper clip them on? And so that was my thought process behind those. And so I have some of these in my shop that I'll be offering too. To give you an idea of what these little quilting scrap buntings look like, so I made a little pocket out of just some recipe pages, and then in the package you'll get 4 buntings. And I made these a little different that I put in the shop. I actually used some seam binding or some trim of some sort as a like it kind of holds them together, and then I just stitched through that, and then that's what the back will look like. So again, this would be a fun way that you could add fabric to your page without having to mess with a sewing machine. So the first 2 cookbooks I want to show you are pretty fat. These guys are rocking about a 3-inch, almost a 3-inch spine here. And this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signatures. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they both have 5 signatures, and they're about the same size. This one right here is just a little bit taller. I think I've showed you this one before. I honestly thought that this was going to be my regular journal. I made it because this cookbook was one that was kind of special to me. It was my grandmother's first cookbook, and I found this at a sale, and the spine, it was not even attached. So I had to do quite a bit of work to this. And I actually made this for me to journal in. And then something about this book, I just couldn't journal in it. I don't know if it was because I had too many ties to it, with it being my grandmother's first cookbook, or if it was just, I don't know, it was one of those things where I felt like it was too precious. And so I kind of pushed it to the side, and I ended up and worked in the little journal. So this one is now going to go in my shop to find itself a loving new forever home. So the spine, I had to totally redo, make an entire new spine. This spine is actually covered with, believe it or not, I used to make quilts a long time ago. And so this was a scrap of a quilt that I made that we actually use today. We still use, but this was a remnant. This was a quilting square that I actually had made, and I've hung on to it for all these years. So I covered the spine with that, and then just covered it with some old trim that I have. And then there's just some little fabric scraps here. This is just a piece of lace that I just actually stuck inside these little stitches, and then you can just tie it. And then the front has some fabric scraps. So this book is fat and chunky with its 5 signatures, and it has a good collection of some vintage ledger paper. Like I think there's some from the 30s, and I think there's some other ledger paper from the 60s, some scrapbook paper, some needlepoint book pages. And with this, I kind of put some fun little flaps in here, so the ledger paper has a fold out, so you could, you know, tape this up and use it as a pocket, or you could use this as something where you add more journaling and more pictures. There are some children's book pages, some garden book pages, some pockets with some handmade tags, another one of those flaps, a fold out, some vintage recipes with what I like to call little old lady handwriting, some wallpaper that is like textured. It's like seagrass wallpaper. And all of the pockets I have filled with some sort of a tag or a card. Sorry if you can hear my dog barking in the back. He's trying to find my son who has left, and he wants someone to play with, and I'm kind of ignoring him right now, which is usually what happens when I get home from school. He demands all my attention. And I love this page right here, how it's kind of yellowed over the years, and then I just put this stitch of fabric, or stitched some fabric on here. And anyway, so when I come home from school, it's like I barely hit the door, and he, oh my gosh, he's like demanding all my attention, and it's raining, so he really can't go out and play in the backyard, so he's just kind of, running around barking. I did let him go to the post office with me. He and I always take a ride over to the post office if I have to mail something. Some of that 1960s wallpaper that I have. I really like that. I love the colors of the 1960s wallpapers. And the ledger paper, some of it has writing on it and some of it doesn't. And I kind of like both ways. I like to doodle on top of other people's writing, especially if it's, you know, faint and it's kind of disappearing in the background. And then I kind of also like the blank pages. Sometimes blank pages, they scare me. There are lots of pages in this book. Lots and lots of places for you to journal. Lots of places for you to stick ephemera. Some more seagrass wallpaper. Thought these were cool. 7 cents. 7 cents. You're going to get 7 cents off if you buy Pillsbury. Is it even worth buying for 7 cents? And then the end paper is the original end paper from the book on both sides. And then this is just some wallpaper that I cut, wallpaper scraps that I cut and put in there. So this is the American Woman's Cookbook. The other one is, if you are a cookbook collector, this is the Woman's Home Companion Cookbook. This is a collector's item. Sadly for this one, it was not. It was in a very, very sad little state of affairs when I found it. Again, it had a lot of damage to it. And this actually was the 1942 edition, which is the highly collected one. So on this one, like I said, 5 signatures. And then because the cover was in such bad shape, I just took some old wallpaper and cut it out and glued it on. And then, so that's where these strawberries came from. And then I just took some gold sealant and kind of went over it with this gold sealant. So it's got a little bit of a shimmer. And then it just has this little tie with these 2 little wooden beads at the ends, and then an eyelet right there. So this is another chunky one. Oh, and then I put a tassel on here. So this is some ticking fabric that I got from, this is an old pillowcase, and then just some rickrack. I thought the red and the blue went well together. And then I just have a couple of eyelets, and then this is actually knotted up there. So this again is a very chunky one. I have that same wallpaper that I put in the center, and then basically the same layout as the one before. So you've got little old lady recipes. I've stuck all kinds of stuff in the pockets. You've got some thicker cardstock, some note paper, some children's book pages, some graph paper, the pages from the original cookbook, some tablet paper, and this has been glued together, so it's nice and thick. There's two pieces here that's glued together. Some thick cardstock, some newer recipe pages, and I tried to include bright and colorful illustrations or photographs from these books, and it just always seems to be dessert pictures that are the I don't know, the brightest and the prettiest. This is some textured cardstock. That must have been from my old scrapbooking days. So with this, I took the original pages and I would sew them into other pages that were already here. So that's why some of them look like they're double pages. It's because I've sewed maybe like 2 pages together. This would be a great journal to do a lot of writing in. This would be a great journal to keep by your bedside and, I don't know, maybe jot down lists of things you want to do and things you want to remember, memories that you've made. You could absolutely put pictures and ephemera in this book. And then I just kind of like that whole feel of the vintage kitchen. It reminds me of my grandma. It reminds me of spending, oh, I love that paper. It reminds me of spending so much time at her house, in her kitchen, helping her make dinner, helping her make, my favorite thing to make was pudding. She let me sit up on the counter and I would get to stir the pudding. And we always used the same pan, pudding pan, and the same old wooden spoon. And now I have the pudding pan. I don't know how I ended up with it, but I have the pudding pan. It's my favorite pan. Use it all the time. And then had to get rid of the wooden spoon, but I have my own wooden spoon now. I don't know if you saw that recipe that I was flipping through, that one. The name of whatever they were making was called Hanky Panky. That'll be interesting. Hanky Panky. Oh, love that photograph. And then these are little pockets. There's several of those in there. All right, so that is The Woman's Home Companion with 5 signatures. Next up, I have 2 taller, but not quite as fat. These are much skinnier with about a 1-inch spine, 3 signatures and 3 signatures. So they're not going to be fat and chunky like the last 2, and they have a little bit larger of a page. So this is a Betty Crocker's Dinner in a Dish. It has like pattern tissue that is covering the spine. It's got some wallpaper. And then a piece of a recipe with some little old lady handwriting and just some fabric scraps and a button. So this one also has wallpaper in the center. So this one is basically that same theme. I tried to keep the really pretty illustrations, and then I would sew papers in. Oh, on this one with this thread, I was using this rainbow thread, and I love how bright it is. I need to get some more of that. And then, like I said, I sewed pages onto pages, so it's almost like you get 2 pages in one. Pockets with all kinds of tags and papers for you to journal on. I went ahead and put some little flip-ups and fold-outs in here. And I like this one because it has lots of different sizes of paper. So this is a lot like my little journal where I'll have one big piece and then right behind it I'll have a little piece. So there's a couple little tags. And it's like the pages behind are always peeking through. And I really like that. Oh, there's some of that rainbow fabric or thread again. This really reminds me of my little journal. This because it just, I don't know, it seems to be like the same pages and stuff that I used, and just the size. Ledger paper, cardstock, scrapbook paper. Oh, so this is kind of cool. This is a little note, but I'm not going to tell you what's in this little note, but it's a sweet little note. And when I stuck it in the other day, I thought, okay, whoever gets this is probably going to think that's pretty sweet, but I won't tell you what it says. I'm going to save it for a surprise for whoever gets this book. But yeah, thought that was kind of a sweet little note. So that's the Betty Crocker Dinner in a Dish. This is June Roth's Fast and Fancy cookbook. The reason why I loved this book was because the end papers. It was straight out of the 60s and it was so pretty with its hot pink. So the spine I covered with a book page, and then I covered it with this old fabric that I have. And I love the colors because it's kind of this turquoise and this pink, and that kind of goes with the end papers that are on the inside. And then this is a pumpkin pie recipe card from Alice, whoever Alice is, with some fabric scraps. So here's the end paper. It's this groovy hot pink. And then I just stuck an envelope on the front with a couple recipe pages. Look at these. Aren't these illustrations or these pictures? They are just gorgeous. So I tried to stick some of those all throughout this book so you could use them in your journaling. Cut them apart, use them as your background paper. And then there's also one back here too. This one's red. So, and then I have wallpaper on the inside of the spine. So again, pretty much the same layout. There's the end paper, and I was able to take a whole piece and put it in here. The ledger paper, scrapbook paper, put lots of recipes. This was some old, I don't think it was scrapbook paper. I found it at an estate sale, and it's pretty large, and it's not construction paper. It's better quality, but it's nice and thick. So there's a couple of pages in this in here, with some wallpaper as the little tab. And then this is a really big envelope that I just put some washi tape. Love that washi tape. And then inside I've got some recipe cards and some of my little tags where I've sewn some fabric on there. Lots of note paper. That's some of my favorite wallpaper. Actually got that wallpaper and this paper at the same sale. Oops. And there's some more of that end paper. So the colors in this, I really liked. The pinks, the turquoise, the yellows, the greens, the peach. I don't know, they kind of all really spoke to me. I love, 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 love those colors. So this is one of my favorite little bakeries here in Kansas City. It's on West 39th Street, which is kind of a little hip district. And so I got some sweet potato donuts, and this bag came with it. So I thought this would be a cool little thing to use in my little journal. But I don't know, I just never made it in there. And I was putting this together and I was like, now that is perfect. This is a perfect place for it. So you get a little tag in a little glassine bag where I had my sweet potato donuts. Some gold paper there. And this is a little like a tally card, but this cool thing about this one is it was empty on the inside, so you could actually write some stuff in there. Some more recipes. And then there's the back. So that is June Roth's Fast and Fancy Cookbook. This is the sister to the book, the Singer Sewing book that I put in my last shop edition. And it's basically the same size. This was a Random House book called Great Dishes of the World. And you can kind of see it's brown cover, but then I put all kinds of ink stains on it, some paint splatters, some glitter. And then this is a hanky that I used part of it in that other book, that Singer Sewing book, and then covered the spine with the hanky, then put some trim, and then sewed these buttons on. Oh, I sewed so many buttons one day. I sewed like 50 buttons on books one day and only injured myself one time, and that was on the very last button. And the cover also has some embossing on here. And I was thinking this would be like recipe, home, and it actually turned out to be a little theme of chairs. So you're going to kind of see a theme of chairs as you go through. Now I have loaded this journal up. It's got a lot of thickness to it because I've got so much fabric and stuff over on this side. Okay, so love this one. Fabric on the inside. There's a button on the inside. So it basically goes, there's 4 signatures and they kind of follow all the same pattern here. So scrapbook paper, lots of tags and pockets that have been stuffed with tags. Some really cool fabric. I love these, this card that I got at a sale last week, and it just, I don't know, these colors right here. Ugh, that is awesome. Some more fabric, tags in a little envelope, some garden pages, some pages from the original book, some pages from the Singer Sewing book. So because they were the same size, I was able to intertwine those pages. So the Singer Sewing book, I pulled out pictures from the home sewing part. So it was like making bedspreads, making curtains, making slip covers for chairs. So you'll see some sewing pattern pages in here, but it'll be for more home sewing, not like clothing sewing. Fondue, who doesn't love fondue? And then this actually folds out. So I'll show you that. Again, some of my triangles, my quilting fabric scraps, some old cool 90s wallpaper. And then in this envelope, let's make something with chocolate. This little recipe booklet. Oh, love it, love it, love it. You can cut it up. You can use the pages as background. This has an envelope with a little card in it. Another envelope with a tag in it. So I loaded this one up with envelopes. There's a lot of envelopes in this. Pockets, ledger paper, doilies. And I did wash these doilies. They're just stained from time. But yeah, I did wash those. Okay, so check this out. This is pretty cool. So this was let me see if I have the other side of it. Yeah, okay, so this was like, it was in a picture frame. So I took it apart, and you know you'd put your pictures in. So I took it apart, and I thought, well, I could get 2 out of this. So this is glued on, or actually it's glued on down here, and then I just stitched. And so then inside, I have this little vellum right here that I pulled out, and you could put your little pictures or whatever you want. And then it can go back down in here. So it's like a little peekaboo hole thing. I thought that was so cool. More garden pages. Lots of fabric in this. I hit the jackpot at an estate sale last weekend. And, oh, see, like chairs, like I would just find things that had to do with furniture and I'd stick that in. And I found some really, really cool fabric. So I've been trying to use cool fabrics. And the colors in this are kind of that 60s, 70s vibe. Again, that's a cool little journaling card. Another envelope. Fried chicken with gravy. That sounds awesome. And then just some more pages that you could use as background pages or ephemera. Okay, so just like I did in the Singer Sewing book, I used a pattern package and then sewed it in as a pocket. So then I filled this pocket with one of my tags and then a little couple pieces of some wrapping paper scraps that I thought would work well with the colors in here. Another envelope. There's some more cookbook pages in there. You can actually slip something in that little space right there too. Oh, and there's a pocket right there. I always try to go in and fill all the pockets, but there's always one or two that I miss. So I'll have to make sure I go back and fill that in. Lots of wrapping paper. So here's how to make a slip cover for a chair. Now the recipe pages from this book, the original book, are super thick, super thick, and they're nice and matte, like they have a cottony feel to them. So they would be awesome to journal on. I can just imagine like colored pencil, watercolor. Yeah, I think it would be super yummy. Those pages would be super yummy to do some journaling on. Here's some of my 1970s Brady Bunch fabric that I found last week. I found a whole bunch of this stuff. And so I put this on as a little pocket. And I swear my 6th grade science teacher, he had pants like this. I swear. And it's funny, my husband had him as a teacher too. And so yeah, when he saw that fabric, he's like, oh my gosh, that looks like Mr. Holiday's pants. That was his name, Mr. Holiday. And a doily. That's actually a paper doily. Okay, so I put a, I had a piece of like this, oh, it's not vellum, but it's, I don't know. I can't remember what they call it, but it's like that thick plastic. I want to say acetate, but I don't think that's right. But anyway, so this has the chandelier silhouettes on here, and I thought that was cool. So I kind of cut it down and just sewed it in as a little pocket. And then a calendar page, made a little pocket out of this super yummy recipe paper. And then this is a little recipe booklet. Another envelope with a tag inside. Another one of those pretty cards. And that's wrapping paper, so it's been glued to the front and to the back. So there's several pages in here that have been glued together back to back, and it just makes them nice and super thick and super yummy to journal on. And a garden book page. And then there's the end. So that is a super loaded Great Dishes of the World. And then I thought I was done, but I had one more book that I wanted to get in the shop. I actually had two, but I couldn't get them both done. So this is the one I got done. So this is a cool little book. This is actually a 1955 book put out by Carnation, the company Carnation, and it's called Fun to Cook Book. Now, it was a really narrow book, so I had to add a little bit extra to make this cover wide enough. So it's like a 6x8. And then I used my Zetter Bind It All again, and I did this type of binding. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I wanted to keep all the original pages intact. I wanted the story to stay intact. So on the back, you can see where I stitched through it. It's like a little golden book type thing where I stitched through it, kind of like my Christmas books. And then there's this little extra space here that I put some ribbon. I put a little, like it's a little tag that says chocolate chip cookies. This little wooden tag that says the sweetest thing, and this little cardboard tag that says try our farm fresh eggs. And then these are just some vintage trims that I tied on here. So with this book, you're going to get like over 70 pages, but here were my thoughts. There are 24 original pages from the actual book, and they're all here and they're all in order. So I was thinking you could either keep them in here if you wanted to read the story, or you could keep them in here if you wanted to journal on them, Or you could actually rip them out and cut them up and use them as ephemera on the other pages. So that's why this is super thick, is because I didn't know how you would want to use it. Personally, for me, I think what I would do is I would rip these pages out, the original book pages, and I would cut them up and use them for collage material as I go throughout the book. So that's why it's super thick, because you can pull some of the pages out and actually go back and use them as journaling pieces. But for now, it's all intact, so you can use it however you want. So this is the first page. And then, do you remember when I did my garden journals and I had book jackets, and I made the fold out for the book jacket? And yeah, so I found some recipe book jackets. I thought this one was really cool. I love the colors. Backed it with a piece of scrap paper and then stitched around it. Some of my favorite scrapbook paper. They don't make this anymore, but this is some of my favorite. This is the last of it. Another one of the book page. There is tablet paper, and it has been double backed, so it has been glued together with another piece of tablet paper, so it makes it a little bit thicker, and then it's been stitched. And then an envelope, and inside the envelope you will get a vintage recipe, you'll get some coupons from long ago, you'll get some tags for journaling. Here's some of that bunting, but I just kind of, I stitched it on this time, and these were some index cards that had recipes on them. So there's like 5 or 6 of them in here. This is just a piece of scrapbook paper, nice thick piece. And then I put some vellum on, made a little pocket with a little journaling tag. And this is actually a recipe card. So lots of fun little things in this book. I just kept trying to think, you know, how could you use this book? What would be a cool way to use it? Maybe you don't even like cooking, you don't even like recipes, but you just like the look and the feel of this journal. That would be a-okay. This doesn't have to be about recipes. So this is scrapbook paper with some of that funky 1970s Mr. Holiday's pants material. And that's another reason why it's bulky, is because I tied a knot in this. There's like 4 of these pages, and so that's another reason why it's bulky, is because there's 4 knots in the center. And then these are some old, I want to say Denison tags, and I just glued them on, and then the little eyelet goes right over the hole that was in the paper. Some more envelopes with all kinds of goodies inside. Again, some of my favorite scrapbook paper. These little tags that came from whatever this paper company is that I used for the scrapbook paper. And I just cut the little tags up and sewed them onto the pages. Some more of those triangles, little old lady handwriting. Another fold out. Love that fabric with that paper. And then I kept there's some of my fabric that I got from a sale last week. I kept most of the strings just kind of hanging off. So if you like that messy look, this is definitely the journal for you, because this is gonna have a lot of strings that are hanging off. And I actually cut some of them because some of them were too long. Some recipe cards that I just added some fabric trim to, stuck them in as little journaling cards. This I actually got in the mail. It came from, I don't know, it was some promotion for something, and my husband was like, why do I feel like you would use this? And I said, absolutely, I would use this. So yeah, stuck it in the journal because I thought it fit perfectly and the colors worked. Here's another, here's the other side of that book jacket. So I cut it in half. So here's another one of those fold outs. Another envelope. Okay, so this is one of those, oh, now the dogs outside are barking. So this is one of those index cards with a recipe on it, and then I just took some lace and sewed in a little pocket. Another recipe card. Another recipe card this way. I turned it this way so you can fold out. And then an envelope at the end. And at the back, you've got a little pocket with a tag and a label and a little sticker. So there you go, guys. These are the 6 books that I have in my cookbook collection. And like I said, I will post these in my Etsy shop on Thursday, October 12th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, USA. And I hope you enjoy these. I sure had a lot of fun putting them together. And as always, guys, have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.